Good evening, everyone. Blessings to you all for joining Ask Pastor Tim, episode number 9. Glad to be here with you tonight, and I've got my main man, my number one man, my firstborn, KT Kemuel, KT Jones, with me tonight, and we're going to be talking. This is our second part that we're doing on relationships. Did the first part with my daughter Jewel, and we're doing part 2 with KT tonight. And so we're excited about having him on with us. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We do it, Ask Pastor Tim, every other Tuesday night at 8 p.m. And we do this so that we can provide a platform for people to get answers to questions that they have and get common, I won't even say common sense answers, because this is not about common sense. Sometimes it is, but it's really about spiritual understanding. A lot of times we're looking for answers. What we really are looking for is a spiritual understanding. And so at Ask Pastor Tim, that's what we provide, is a spiritual understanding. I've got 35 years of in this game of pursuing purpose and destiny. And so, yeah, I've got a lot to offer in this area of wisdom and knowledge and understanding. In fact, I have a particular set of skills, as Liam Neeson said. I have a particular set of skills, and so do you. Everyone has a particular set of skills. I happen to know exactly what mine are, and so you will hear a lot about wisdom and knowledge and understanding and purpose and destiny, because that's my area, that's my thing, that's my area of expertise. I've been a poster child, if you will, for purpose and destiny and discovering it in your life for the past 30 plus years. And so I'm offering that wisdom, that knowledge, and that understanding to you on this platform we call Ask Pastor Tim. So with that, let's jump into our subject tonight. KT, you want to greet everyone?
Hey everyone. Happy to be on, and um yeah, this should be a very interesting subject matter to talk about, and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Yeah. So let's do this. Let's have a brief word of prayer. Because I feel like, yeah, let's do that. Father, we thank you for another opportunity to um, be instruments, tools used by you. And Father, as always, we look to you in everything and for everything. You are the source of all wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And so, Father, all of the questions that we have, we come to you with them. Because you're the creator, you're the maker of all things, known and unknown, seen and unseen. And so you have the blueprint for all of life. So, Father, as we discuss relationships tonight, thank you for just filling our hearts and our minds, orchestrating our thinking, our speaking, and our doing. And in doing so, let those who are listening and who may choose to chime in and be a part of the conversation, may they get something, Lord, that will help them in this area of relationship. May they get something that will cause them to have a better understanding so that they can do relationship in a way that adds to their life. And this is our prayer in Jesus' name. So, um, our format is usually, I'll answer questions that my guest has for me. KT's he's loaded with some questions, and I sent some of them to me. I like a lot of the questions that he has, so it should be a pretty vibrant discussion. Please make sure that you type your questions in the chat. Okay? We've got those who are watching on Facebook. We've got those who are watching on Instagram, and we also have those that may be watching on YouTube as well. type your questions in the chat. We've got someone monitoring the chat, so they'll make sure that we get that question. But we absolutely want you to participate in this conversation. Hey, relationships affect everyone. And I would even say the quality of your relationships of the relationships in your life will reflect the quality of life that you have, that you live. So with that said, I'm going to just kind of step back and let KT talk a little bit and begin to set maybe even some stage for maybe some of the questions that he may ask if he wants to do that, or you can just jump in and ask the first question. However you want to do that, man. I'm gonna yield it to you now.
Okay. Pull up my questions really quick. All right. Well, I believe the subject matter for today is relationships, and um, their different forms and how to navigate relationships as a believer, especially in this day and age, which I think is a very important topic. A lot of people have different views on that subject, and they all have different answers to these questions. I felt like in my experience and conversations with friends or just other people. So I feel like this is going to be good. So let's see. I'll start with something simple. Um, what do you feel like is the purpose of having a spouse? What's the point? And before you answer that question, I'll preface it with this.
Okay.
Currently, in this year, now as of 2023, not only do we have the largest decrease in the amount of young people getting married, but in that same category, the largest amount of people getting divorced. With that being said, you have people who are wondering what's the whole point. You have um, the definition of what a relationship is seems to be, and each person's role in that relationship seems to be changing and shifting so much these days. And it seems as if there's no foundation, nothing, no real ground to stand on the purpose of a relationship, the purpose of a marriage, the purpose of a spouse. Why do it anyway, right? Why just not hook up with as many people as you want to hook up, and y'all make your own rules as you go along? Why the tradition? Why keep it in 2023 where culture and the world would say it doesn't really matter. If that's something you want to do, cool. If that's something you don't want to do, you can do whatever you want. If you want multiple relationships, if you want no relationships, if you want some form of whatever in between. So I think a good starting point would be solidifying what the whole point of it is in the first place.
Okay.
So just to preface my question again, what is the purpose of having a spouse?
What is the purpose of having a spouse? Great question. And so I'll start here. Every created thing, okay, has a blueprint, has a set of specifications, has a design, has a manual. The manual, the specifications, the blueprint is how the thing is supposed to operate um, and provide maximum output for whatever it's supposed to do. Okay? Everything that's created has a manual. If it doesn't have a manual, then people won't know how to use it, which means that they create their own ways of using it. They'll use it for the wrong things, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you have a blueprint, you have specifications for how to build it or how to make it or how to put it together. and you have a manual instructions on how to operate it. Okay. Human beings are created beings. Okay. We were created. And so there's, you say, well, where's the manual for for a human being? Well, there are people who have many manuals that they use for how to live and how to operate and how to be and how to do, right? Well, as a Christian, a believer in Jesus Christ, as a believer in God the Father, as a believer in the Holy Spirit, the Trinity, Godhead, we believe that the Bible is an instruction manual for man. Okay? And how to live and how to be and how to do, how to operate. And so, taking from that reference, we see that God created man, okay, in his image and after his likeness, okay, and gave him the mandate to be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue the earth, and have dominion. And then he gave man a helper. He saw, man, and he said, it's not good for man to be alone. Okay. In other words, it will be difficult for man to fulfill the mandate on his life alone. So he made man a helpmate, someone to help him to be able to fulfill the mandate. Now I'm going to back up just a little bit from that statement. In Genesis 1:26 and 27, when it talks about God creating man in his image after his likeness, it says that he created them male and female. Okay. So man in spirit is both male and female because that's who God is. He made us in his image. So God has male attributes and he has female attributes. Okay. So man spiritually has both male and female attributes. Okay. It wasn't until God made a body for the male man or man, okay, and he put all that man was made to be in that one body. And when he put all that man was, male and female, in that one body, he decided that it wasn't good for man, all of man, to be in that one body. So he made man a helper, created another body, took from that body a rib, and created another body, okay, blew breath in that, and that body became the female or the feminine spirit or the female part of God, and then you got the male part of God. They both function together to create a picture of God that is a whole picture. Okay? Now, according to the Bible, that is why man exists, why women exist. Okay? There is a function that we have when we come together that creates a picture of the sovereign almighty God that neither one of us by ourselves can't create that picture. Okay. So you said, what's the purpose of marriage? The purpose of marriage is to create a picture of God. The purpose of marriage is not to have babies. Okay. Having babies is a part of the mandate, which is to be fruitful. But the purpose is to create an image, a picture of God. Okay. And so that's the most basic answer that I can give for what is the purpose of marriage, is to create a picture of God. Now, when you're talking about the male and female, you begin to talk a little bit about why even bother, with all the difficulty that there seems to be in identity in nowadays. And there's a reason for that too. Okay. And that reason has everything to do with the separation that happened between God and man. When man disobeyed, or when man deviated from the instructions that God had given, okay, a separation was created, a gap was created. We call that gap sin. It's a separation between God and man. And so that gap from the moment of creation, or from the moment of Adam and Eve's sin, has continued to get wider and wider and wider and wider and wider and wider. So that means that sin has become normal in our eyes, not in God's eyes, but in our eyes. So it's become normal for men and women to hook up and have as many wives and or mates or partners as they want. It's normal for males to be confused about their identity and females to be confused about their identity. That's normal. Why? Because of sin, because of the separation, the gap between God and man. That's why it's normal. But that normality is from man's perspective, not from God's, because it was not what he originally intended according to the manual. Okay? According to the manual. That's all we have to go by, is the manual and the Spirit of God, okay, that helps us to understand that manual. Based upon that, the instructions denoted that men and women come together, create a picture of God. Okay, so I said all that other stuff to give some sense of understanding about why we are so far away from that. Okay, it's because of the original sin, or the original separation, the original disobedience. Okay, and so today we have all of the confusion around not just marriage, family, identity, but all of those things were designed to create a picture of God. God wanted a family in the earth. And he created man to be the one who would be the apex of that family in the earth. Okay. So yeah, I wanna tailor that in that question right there, so you can ask something else, because I'll keep going.
So what it sounds like you're saying is that the original design of man and woman was to make a complete picture of Christ together. That in the beginning, God tried to put everything in man that didn't work. That wasn't optimal. So he
Wasn't
split
optimal.
them up.
Great word. Wasn't optimal.
And so their oneness, their becoming one again, is a is a is a an image, a picture of the wholeness of Christ. And so um, by becoming one, that by still enacting and walking in and abiding by that tradition, we are in fact operating in a core principle that God has designed for us to walk in.
So absolutely. Think about it from this perspective. You know, if you throw away the manual of something, okay, you throw away the instructions, okay. Now, if you're making it up on your own, okay, now whoever created this thing can't even recognize it, because you're doing it on your own, not according to the instructions, right? So it voids any warranties that may have come with the product. Because the warranties come with the product based upon you using it the way the manual, the instructions tell you to use it.
Right.
And if you use it that way and it doesn't work, you have every right to come back to the creator and say, look, this thing didn't work the way you said it was. I did exactly what you said. And then they'll replace it or do whatever it is to make it right. And so the guarantee or the warranty comes with obedience to, alignment with the instructions. So you can't throw away the instructions. And the instructions, you use this word tradition, the instructions are not tradition, the instructions are purpose. Okay? And so you can't throw purpose away. You throw purpose away, then life ceases to exist. People cease to be without purpose. The reason we are here is because of purpose. There was a reason, that there was a purpose that brought us into existence. You cannot, it is my firm belief that nothing can exist without purpose. So you can't throw that away.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So we are acting in the design that we were created to do by operating in that. And by doing that, we are um, following the instructions of the manual so that we can reap the benefits of the design in and of itself.
Absolutely.
And by not abiding in that, we miss out on everything that we are meant to receive by doing that. So that's interesting. Well,
Let me
now
say
that
this before you pivot, because not only do we miss out, all of creation misses out.
hmm,
Okay. Romans 8:19, I believe it is. It says that the earnest expectation of the creature or creation awaits the manifestation of the sons of God. It says that all of creation was subjected to futility because man disobeyed.
hmm,
Nature didn't disobey, creation didn't disobey, man disobeyed. And because man was the key to this whole thing, all of creation was subjected to futility because of man's disobedience. And now all of creation is waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God so that it can be returned to its state of glory.
hmm,
Try that one on for size.
hmm, hmm. That is interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah,
Futility.
futility.
Well, that's interesting because in that case, if I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to do that. I want to be operating in everything that God has designed me to do. And though yes, I have, there are people, most of us have a natural tendency to want to find a spouse or a helpmate or
Sure,
however you want to call it.
sure.
We're also um, um, we also have to make sure that we are doing that in the correct way, that we're following the instruction manual correctly on how to go about doing that. That's just as important in pursuing that in the first place. Even if
Absolutely.
the end goal of the design is what I want to meet, I still have to make sure I follow those instructions correctly so the end product is built correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not dealing with any corrupted or damaged parts. With that being said, especially as you know, I still like to consider myself a young person, even though I'm about to cross.
I like to consider you a young person too.
Depending on what generation you ask, I guess I'm old now. But so if that is my intention and that is my goal in this day and age where it can be so difficult to figure out how to apply those instructions to this time in which we are living in, for lack of better words, how do I know when I am even ready to start looking or pursuing a spouse?
Great question. And so nobody can tell you when you're ready. Okay? I'll share with you what happened with myself and your mother. We both came to this place in our own spaces. Okay? So having gone through uh, the dysfunctionality of trying to be in relationship and not even know who you are. Okay, that's straight dysfunctionality. Being in a relationship and not knowing who you are. How can you be and give the best to someone and you don't even know who you are? Okay. Anyway, so having gone through that, both of us, right, and experienced um, 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 an impressive degree of failure in that, okay, we both came to a place. I came to a place where, you know, some of you heard my testimony as it concerns this, you know, coming out of a place. It was a relationship that landed me in a place of the worst depression I've ever been in my life. It was a relationship that brought me to that place. And it was a relationship that brought me out of it. But the relationship that brought me out, the relationship with man brought me into it. The relationship with God brought me out of it. Okay? I had a conversation with God, and that conversation had to do with what was real. You know, I expressed that what I had seen, what I had experienced, if that was real, if that was all there was, I didn't want that, because it was flawed, you know, and it was all kind of jacked up and messed up. I didn't want no part of it. And I said to God, if there is more, I need to know that there's more. Mm-hmm. And he said back to me within my own spirit, there is more. And it woke me up out of that place of depression. And I said, well, show me. And from that day to this day, he has not ceased to show me and demonstrate the more. And so I got on a path. During that time, I think I even said this to your mom at one point. I'm on a mission for God. I was on a mission to discover the more. And the more wasn't just about, you know, because I wasn't even thinking about it from the standpoint of serving God. You know, some people get in certain places and they'd be like, you know, well, God, if you help me here, I'll serve you I'll serve you for the rest of my life. No, that wasn't what I was. I was like, God, you got to show me the more for me, for my life, the more in life. And so I was after something greater than what I had seen. My parents were awesome, amazing, stayed together 60 years before my mom passed away, right? Their marriage was just as dysfunctional as any other marriage, but they had determined in their minds that they would stay together. And they loved each other. They just dealt with each other's dysfunction, and they found a way to make it comical, you know. And so, you know, there they were. But they loved each other, and they were committed to each other, and they were committed to their family. And so I got that, right? The commitment part, I got that. But the dysfunctional parts of it, I was like, I don't want that. And so the Lord told me that there was more. And he began to show me that there was more. And so I committed and dedicated myself to that path and discovering the more. So my mind and my focus was on that, not on the females. Mm-hmm. So when I met your mother, I was on that path. Okay, so I could see her for who she truly was without having any kind of I'll use the word flesh for lack of the one that I'm looking for, any kind of flesh response to her. I could just see her as a person, a friend, or an amazing human being, a gifted, you know, I could see her, okay, because I had no agenda towards her, okay. And that's a part of the issue with when you're, how they say nowadays, when you're thirsty, right? When you're thirsty, man, you run the risk of not seeing the person. You're seeing them externally. Because that thirst isn't coming from inward, it's coming from your flesh. I want even I desire to be married. Why do you desire to be married? You know, why do you desire to have a mate? Why do you desire to have kids? Why do you desire that? Is it truly an internal desire, or is there any external mixed into that? Is it because you saw someone else's marriage and it looked on the outside like it was just, they were just the happiest people in the world, right? And I promise you that was just from the outside. They weren't as happy as they looked. They may have been happy, but they weren't as happy as they look, right? Everybody, and no marriage is perfect. But you saw that and it created a desire, man, I want that. But even that is external.
Mm.
Okay. And so that's the risk that you run when you're thirsty. And so you have to redirect your focus
Mm.
because whether you are married or not, you have a purpose to fulfill in the earth. Whether you do that with a mate or not, you still have a purpose to fulfill in the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when you and finding, discovering what your assignment is should be one of the highest priorities in your, in fact, it should be the highest priority in your life until you find it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the path that I was on. So when I met your mom, right, she met me on that path.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So she got to see that what I was really about. Right. And the same with her. She wasn't exactly on that path when I met her, but not long after she was on that path. And she
Mm-hmm.
resolved in her mind that, you know what, I'm just not even dealing with that right now. I'm not even, I'm going to focus on God and allow him to build me up and heal me. She was focused on becoming a better person herself,
Mm-hmm.
focused on growing in God. And we just became friends in our processes. And in doing that, with no intention of our own, in doing that, God began to knit our hearts together because we were running and we were running parallel. See? And God did what he does, knit hearts together because he sees, he knows, he's the one that has the overall picture. We don't,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So my whole point in that is focus. It's almost always about focus. And if you can focus on, first of all, realize, know within, even within yourself, know that, okay, I don't believe that I was created to be a human. Okay. All right. So that means that if I desire to be married, then there's someone that will fit with me
Mm-hmm.
to the degree that they make me better and I make them better and we make better. Okay? There's someone that fits that for me. They may not fit all of the physicality, all the physical things that I want. They may not. And if I focus on that, I could very well miss the one who can really feed what's in here. Because
Mm-hmm.
accomplishing God's will is what gives you fulfillment. Fulfilling purpose is what gives you fulfillment. Because you can get arm candy, right? And at the end of the day, you're still unfulfilled. The arm candy don't even look like arm candy no more. It don't even matter because you can only, that does not fulfill you. Flesh, nothing in the flesh can fulfill you.
Mm-hmm.
Only the accomplishing or the completion of something, the getting on the right path and living my life the way it was designed to be lived, expressing the gifts and the talent that God has given me in the earth and allowing that to be a blessing. That's what gives you fulfillment on the inside,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, if you got someone who can help you to do that and you help them to do what they're here to do, man, that just fulfillment, right? Just proliferates to fulfillment. And so it really is about focus and what you allow your heart. You have to protect your heart because the world we live in will pull you into all of the desires that cause your focus to be off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you got to protect yourself against that. And
Yeah.
it is not easy at all.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to know. You got to know who you are. You got to have a sense of what God has called you to, and you got to focus on that. And in doing that, God will bring all the things that will add to your life. He'll bring them across your path. And then it's just up to you to recognize it. Because you got to recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to recognize it so that you can say yes to it. Right?
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. So you're saying it's not even about, you may have the desire to do something or desire to find a helpmate and a spouse, but um, you are really going to find them while you are focused on running your race. And that leads me to another question, which you've kind of started talking about already. But if you can get a bit more specific with me on how to know when, because you're saying it's about purpose, how to know when your purpose is aligned with the person you are interested in or dating or courting or whatever. Because like for me, I can be very like one track minded when it comes to that sort of thing. If I'm for me, I call it going into a hole, which is I'm so focused on the things I know that God is calling me to do. It's like I forget that there's, and this is something personally that I have to work on, but it's just easy to get so focused with the things that, focusing on those things and running your race and that kind of stuff, because you just mentioned, you have to be able to notice it, right? So there's this balance in play between desiring a helpmate, and especially as a man, because we are this pursuer, right? So while I'm running my race, still being able to pursue while having this desire. So that I'm doing a lot at one time. So I think it helps to be clear on how to know when my purpose, right? What I believe to be my purpose, what I believe God is speaking to me about, and within the race that I'm running, how do I know that the other person that I may be interested in, right? That I'm like, okay, something's drawing me to that person or is interesting me about that person, whatever. How do I know that when that person's purpose is aligned with mine, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can now see we are running together, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, obviously, you got to spend some time. You've got to do some things together. That whole dating, right? But the thing is that you have to be able to spend time with someone, have meaningful conversations, experience them in different environments, have some fun with them, be serious with them, be silly with, you've got to experience them in all of these different kinds of ways. And we get to experience friends like that. You
Mm,
can experience friends like that. So that's one of the reasons why it's important and it's safe to approach relationships from the standpoint of developing lifelong friends.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Okay, people that your heart will always long for because of the friendship. See, we were able to establish a friendship that wasn't based on any agenda that either one of us had. Now,
mm-hmm,
don't get me wrong. In the back of your mind, you're always thinking about potentials,
mm-hmm,
but because our focus was on where we were going and what we were doing, that's what was in the front of our mind. And
mm-hmm,
so, as we continue to experience each other as friends, okay, there came a point when one of those, I think it was, no, it was when Christmas time. We went home, we went our separate ways. She went home, I went home. And it was during that time when my heart started missing her because
mm-hmm,
I wasn't near her. And it caused me to now think. And the Lord began to show me things and
mm-hmm,
began to confirm things.
mm-hmm,
Okay. Before that, we were running, having fun, doing what we do, going out on dates or whatever, but as friends.
mm-hmm,
And then the Lord began to turn our hearts. Okay. When He began to turn my heart, I had already experienced her in several environments, in several situations.
mm-hmm,
Okay. And so um, building relationship does take time.
mm-hmm,
It takes time. And I know today, we're in the we're in the Insta year, Insta this and Insta that, you know. But you can't rush, you can't insta a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time to build it. Oh my God, I loved her from the moment that I seen her. Maybe you did, okay? But what happened when she did something that that was totally contrary to
Mm-hmm.
that love you felt
Mm-hmm.
before? Does it affect your love? If it doesn't, good, then that was authentic. There's a good chance that that was authentic.
Mm-hmm.
But if it shifts or changes anyway, then you've got to rethink this whole thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing, man. You don't really know until you start seeing people in their natural habitat, their natural environment. See how they really are, how they really, because someone could look good on the outside, and on the inside they could be rotten.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you got to spend time, and you got to do things like, go to church together. You got that's important to know how someone feels about their creator. That's vital. So you got to do things that matter to the both of you. Now if it matters to one of you and doesn't matter to the other person, that's a sign or a potential flag. you know But if both of you, you love God and you're hungry for God, that's a good sign, right? So, okay, check over in that column, and you just continue to experience them, but you build it as friends. You build out from a friendship. You
Mm-hmm.
learn to build out from a friendship, then you will know if it's something. God will either knit your hearts in a more intimate way, or He will not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's just. And you say, how do you know when it is and when it's not? You know, many people have done this, right? You had that friend, right? And then you start seeing them different, and you try and take it to another level. And then when you try to take it to another level, you both be like, nah, we should just stay friends. This is
Right.
everything. It's because that wasn't meant to be.
Right.
That wasn't meant to be intimate. It was
Mm-hmm.
meant to be what it is, a loving friendship, someone that you can do life with, someone that you can trust in. That's another way. When you start trying to take it to another level and it don't go there, okay, that wasn't meant to
Right.
be. So look, and you learn that as you build out friendships. The danger is when you look at everyone as a potential, right? Then you end up defrauding. You end up taking things from people that you can't give back, and they take things from you that they can't give you back. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why it's just safe to build out friendships, you know, and let God do the knitting.
Yeah.
That's the safe way. Does everybody do that? Of course, everybody doesn't do that. Does
Mm-hmm.
every successful marriage, or whatever a successful marriage looks like now, right? Does everyone who has a successful marriage, is that how they did it? No. Some marriages started out really jacked up, but there were some corrections. There was some restructuring, some reordering, some realigning. Because now that you're in it, you're either going to do what's necessary to stay in it, or you're going to just look for an out.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that's what people are doing. They're looking for an out because they don't understand that it really, really is not about the individual. And I think that that's the biggest lesson right there that gets missed. It is not about the individual. Never has been.
Mm.
It's always been about the picture
Right.
that you get when you come together.
Right.
And that
Right.
that's what gets missed.
Right. 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 And a lot of people don't think about it with that in mind. Even believers, we're not thinking about.
Yeah,
We're thinking about, oh, God's gonna bring me my Ruth or my Boaz or whatever, and they're gonna,
yeah,
match with me, and it's gonna be yada yada blah blah blah. Instead of being like, I'm looking for someone. I want God to bring me someone that is going to help me to be able to achieve the destiny that He's placed on the inside of both of us, right? If we're
right.
running this race together,
Yes,
I want our relationship to do damage to the kingdom of darkness. That
right.
should be the the ultimate goal, right? If we are not adding to the kingdom and taking away from the kingdom of darkness, then what are we really doing?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
are we really operating in the end goal design that we were intended to create? If the idea is to create an image of Christ, right? If my relationship with someone's creating the image of Christ, then it should be doing that by default, because as
Let me
an
let me
image of
explain
Christ,
that.
I'm going to be operating in those things.
Yeah.
Um, so I have more questions, but I'm going to need you to answer them in 60 seconds or less, so I can
All
get through as many of them as possible.
right.
All right. So this segues into Harmony. Make sure you keep in time. I know you're back there. So this leads into my next question. When you mention dating, right? And
Yeah.
because I've lived with you my entire upbringing, uh, your opinion on dating has changed over the years, but has mostly always had a negative connotation. So I would like you to just clear your um, how you feel about that term, how it's used today in this form factor, right? Is dating non-biblical? If so, does that mean we should not date at all? If so, how do we as Christians navigate finding a partner with that in mind, especially with younger Christians, right? So the only word that is used today when it comes to looking for someone, stepping beyond that friendship boundary, is dating.
Yeah.
So what would you call that process? What does that process really look like?
So, and the reason why I um, prefer not even using the terminology dating is because it has an erroneous understanding attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, you have to be able to build out friendships. You got to be able to do that. The safest way to do that is um, in a way that doesn't isolate you. Dating, the connotation of dating tends to isolate. Okay. And if you are dating before you've even reached the point where you found common ground, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean common ground that matters, that common ground that would suggest that it might be a good idea to move up to another level. If you're dating before you get to that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, then what you're doing is you're putting the cart before the horse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so building out friendship keeps you safe,
Mm-hmm.
and having the mindset of non-isolation. Now, does that mean that you can't go anywhere with a person by themselves? No, that isn't what it means. That's not what it means. We would go, you can go on a date, right? But you go
Mm-hmm.
to a public place,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And you stay in public places.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to some place that isolates you, now you're bringing in all of the darkness that wants you to step across the line. All of the darkness that wants you to do things that you're not ready to do yet, that it's not time to do yet. You see? And so the safest way is to do it in public. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Groups of friends, or even if it's not a group of friends, go public places and not isolate. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I don't prefer the term dating. Is it biblical? You can't find that word in the Bible, nor can you find what it necessarily means in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
You find in the Bible words like betrothed, like engaged. Okay. You find words like that because those words have intentional meaning. Dating doesn't have an intentional meaning. It has a let's throw it up against the wall and see if it sticks kind of meaning. That's why I don't like dating. It's too easy to defraud someone dating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Build out your friendship, okay, and as you build out your friendship, you discover that there's something a little more, then you must make a statement of commitment. Okay? That
Mm-hmm.
statement of commitment could be, and it, it sounds a whole, but it could be, I really like you, and I feel like I want to get to know you better. That's a
Mm-hmm.
statement of commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're just a little bit more serious than we were before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We still are not isolating ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you don't stop isolating yourself because the enemy is always after you, and he's always, and you got to remember, this thinking goes contrary to everything the world says and everything the world cultures you to believe. It goes
Mm-hmm.
contrary to that. So you have to maintain a sense of um, discipline. Disciplined thinking, though. If you're disciplined in your thinking, you can be disciplined in your flesh. If you're not disciplined in your thinking, then the flesh is going to be flesh all day long, all the time. That's the way it works. It is what it is. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I don't necessarily like the term dating, because it has an erroneous understanding attached to it, and there's no commitment in dating. Okay, um, I have some stronger words, right? But we could deal with that at another time. But there are words that the Bible uses that shows you, or at least gives you a picture of how you move from intention to actually the in betrothed to someone or married to someone. There's a path, right? I said from intention. I didn't even say from interest. I said from intention,
Mm-hmm.
because until there is some kind of intentional commitment made, then this doesn't have a future.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other reason why I don't necessarily like dating. Dating should just be building friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then if you once you reach a place where you, okay, now I feel like this should be something more, then you some kind of intentional commitment. Intentional and commitment. Two things that go together.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps someone from being defrauded. And you don't overcommit, you commit to the level of the interest that that you garnered, the degree to which you built that relationship or that friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And you just move together like that as you grow and develop and understand each other better. That's the safe way to do it. Okay. And I keep using that word safe because people say, well, I didn't do it that way. I know. Okay. But I'm talking about the safe way to do it. You're asking me, how can you do this and be a Christian and maintain your morals and keep hope alive at the same time? I'm telling you a safe way to do that, that will guard your mind, that will guard your emotions, and that will guard your flesh too. Because you got to think about all three of those things. Okay, that's as I can answer
Mm-hmm. No, that's okay. I think hmm. Okay. So you mentioned commitment. Um, I feel like something that is a common theme today is I feel like a lot of people may have some form of commitment issues, right? They have gone through, they've tried relationships in different forms and factors, different times, and they may have not worked out or something happened or whatever, right? And we all carry it baggage, right, into our next relationship if it's not dealt, you know what I mean?
that.
And a lot of that can look like a hesitancy or resistance
Mm-hmm.
to committing, because really what it is that you're saying, taking it from friendship to that level of commitment, for some people that's a leap. That's quite a
You're right.
step for
You're
them
right.
to take, depending upon their past experiences. So
Hmm.
my for that is, what is your advice for people who have trust issues? Like how does how does someone dealing with that, right? Uh, um, how can they safely or healthily handle, especially if it's someone that they're like, yeah, I really like this person, right? Like I really like this person, but taking that step is a reach for me, for lack of better words. So what would you be your advice to someone dealing with that, if who sees that they want to take that step but is finding it difficult to do so because of that?
Yeah. So, there's safety in numbers. Okay. And you should have friends that you can have courageous conversations with. Okay?
Hmm.
Your friends shouldn't just be people that you just go and hang out with, right? They should be people that you have courageous conversations with, people that are in your corner and desire to see you be and do your best,
Hmm.
desire to see you grow. Because the people who know you, who are closest to you, they know you have commitment issues.
Hmm.
Okay. And so if they are really your friend, then they'll have conversations, especially if they know that you are interested in someone. They'll be willing to have courageous conversations with you where, man, I'm trying to think of what we used to call hot seat. We used to call it hot seat. Well, we would, one of us on any given night on 1908 Dale Street, that was where me and your Uncle D. Jerome and Leon were roommates, right? On any given night, you could be in the hot seat. And when you're in the hot seat, all the questions that you really don't want to answer, those are the ones that are coming at you. But what it does, what it teach, it taught us how to have how to handle difficulty in communication, and
Hmm.
especially for men, that's one of the hardest things, man, to do. Okay, you can't work this stuff out without having difficult, courageous conversations. And so you got to have friends in your life, man. None of us can become who we're going to be by ourselves. We need others. We need
Hmm.
others who challenge us. We need others who certainly encourage us. We need others to hold our feet to the fire. We need others to jack us up when we need to be. We need others in our lives. And
Hmm.
so the community, the friendships that you have, they are huge. They're huge, and they're significant and vital in helping you to grow and helping you to be prepared to make commitments. The reason why people have commitment issues, number one, they've been hurt in the past, and number two, they're not prepared to handle commitment. So good friends help you to prepare.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely agree with that for sure. Um, and even if maybe I think everyone definitely needs to have some form of those friendships, a mentorship, someone they trust, whoever it is that they trust, and go to that person and have those types of conversations with them.
Yeah,
Doing that, or therapy is always a good option too. Just find someone somewhere, who you can trust and put your trust in, because you can't
yeah,
just put your trust in everybody.
yeah.
I mean, you want someone, a quality person, a
Quality people.
wise counsel you
Yep.
can put your trust in. So, all right. The last question I will ask you is your top three most valuable lessons that you have learned in your marriage to my mother. Top three most valuable lessons you have learned out of 30 plus years of experience of love and challenges and all the things, raising three children. The top three most valuable lessons that you yourself have learned.
All right. So number one on top of that list would be uh, committing to vulnerability. What I mean by committing to vulnerability is not running away from it. Most of us run away from vulnerability. We don't want to be vulnerable, but that's the place where you really learn how to grow, and that's a lifelong commitment that you have to renew daily. You don't do that. You don't even do it for a long time and then you got it. No, I still have to do that every day now. Is make a choice. Don't always get it right, but it's in the back of my mind when I don't get it right, and I know I know what I need to do. That being willing to say you're sorry or apologize. I'm going to say that in another way. Being willing to be wrong. Okay. Being willing to be wrong. Okay. And then the third thing would be understanding communication, the bookends of communication. If I'm the one that's giving the communication, my responsibility is not just to give it, but to be mindful of who I'm giving it to. Mindful in terms of the time, in terms of where this person may be, what they may be feeling. They may not be ready to hear this right now. I have to be mindful of that. Okay? And on the other side of it, the person receiving the communication, that person's job is to not be offended. So understanding that helps communication to be able to continue to go forth. Communication breaks down when someone stops listening and someone stops communicating. When there's no communication, let's put it that way. And there is no communication if someone's not listening. And there's no communication if somebody's not being sensitive in how they are presenting something. There's no communication because the other person will shut down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are my three.
Yes, sir. I have a lot more questions, but we'll be here for another hour.
Part two. I got a feeling that the numbers are just gonna keep going. Part 2, part 3, part 4.
Because I would definitely like to break down several things. I feel like clarity is so important for this subject.
It is.
And
it is.
Like I said at the beginning, people have so many different ways that they look at this thing. And I like the terminology that you use in terms of being safe, because it's very easy to get hurt. I heard a saying the other day, something that was like, the only people who can really hurt you are the people you put your trust in. And so people put their trust in people they have no business putting their trust in all the time, especially in relationships. So, I feel like clarity in this is so very important. And yeah. So if you ever do a part 2, I'd have to do.
Yeah, we're gonna do more parts. I'll say this about that because clarity is essential. A lot of the things that I'm saying, they are conceptually contrary to what people think. Okay, I know that, right? So that means that we're deconstructing and reconstructing at the same time. I'm breaking down something that you may have always thought. And at the same time, I'm erecting a new thought. And so that process has to be repeated. You got to hear stuff again. And you got to hear it again. And you got to marinate on it, right? You got to pray about it. You got to think about it. And you got to hear it again. So the process of these types of conversations, because this is not just, like I said, these are concepts and ideology that's contrary to what the world has cultured us to believe and think as it concerns relationships. So these things we have to unlearn in order to learn. So, yeah. Awesome. Thank you, son. I appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely do it again. Thank you, everyone who joined us on Ask Pastor Tim. We are a little over our time, but I know that it was good, and I hope you got something out of it. And for those of you who will be watching post the live, you can still ask questions. You can still hit us up with questions about, what you experience, or even your experience in relationship. Maybe you have a unique point of view, because everyone has their own point of view, and we are all we're all working to get better. I'm still working to get better. Okay, after 31 years, I'm still working to get better. Okay, and so that's why I believe the Bible calls marriage, the man and a woman come together, a mystery. Paul was like, this thing is a mystery. Okay, I can't tell you all there is to know about it. What I can tell you is that it's essential and that it has purpose. If you want to know, if you want to understand or get to know this mystery, you have to search it out. You have to search out understanding in relationships, you know. And so some of the things that I'm saying to you, they're not solutions. These are understandings that have been searched out and that have been lived out. And the reason why I can say them with the understanding and conviction is because we've lived them out, you know, and we have an understanding about this and how it works on the human psyche, the human emotions, and the human physicality as well. So, all right. So blessings to you again. Ask Pastor Tim every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. We're going to go ahead and sign off here. Thank you again, KT. Blessings to you, man. We'll talk to you soon. And remember, everyone, live full so that you can die empty. Good night, everybody.